2013 City Council Fire Protection District meetings. We'd first start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'd like to ask our Councilman Bill Alexander to lead us in the pledge to the flag.
Well, if you'd all join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Mayor Michael is present. Mayor Pro Tem Sam Spagnuolo.
Here.
Council members Bill Alexander.
Here.
Mark Steinorth.
Present.
And Diane Williams.
Here.
Our friends of the Pacific Electric Trail, Vicki and her husband Dennis, and all their volunteers.
Okay, the next order of business is public communications. This is a time and place for the general public to address the Fire Protection District and City Council on any item listed or not listed on the agenda. Comments are to be limited to 5 minutes per individual or less, as deemed necessary by the chair, depending on the number of persons wishing to speak. Public communications period will not exceed 1 hour prior to the commencement of the business portion of the agenda. We have some speakers this evening. We'll have 5 minutes to speak. When the red light goes on, that's the conclusion of your 5-minute period. The yellow light is your 1 minute time frame.
You're late, John. You won't.
Susan Keithley, followed by Dana Keithley.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, everyone. I'd like to once again try to implore you to really look at the figures that we pull with records requests. If you could show this on the screen, please. Oh, it's hard to see. I'm going to leave a copy with you, but this is a comparison from January to August for the years 2011, 2012, and 2013. I really want to focus on the dog walking hours. In 2012, they were 4,331 dog walking hours. In 2013, it dropped down to 1,541. That's almost 2,800 volunteer dog walking hours. The records were pulled detailed. I paid a lot of money for them. They're accurate. I would then like to show here the dog walking numbers actually, so you can see how they've declined, 65%, which is what we've been telling you. I don't see how the animals, the dogs in particular, are thriving at the Rancho shelter, despite all the hoopla and I'm going to say it, propaganda that's going on. It's deflecting from the quality of life for the dogs. And the cats, I mean, they're faring much worse, but I work with the dogs, so I know them better. Vet tech hours, they have increased by 240%. And I have, okay, here are the numbers. 2011, 615 hours. 2012, over 2,000. 2013, over 2,000. Why the sudden increase in vet tech hours? I mean, it's great if students are doing internship, but it's kind of double dipping if they're logging in as volunteers. So that's fine, but they're not giving you, they're giving you lump sums of hours with no explanations. So I can understand why you're going, well, the volunteer hours they're so high, but they're being creative. And we're still saying the quality of care that the dogs are getting, especially in 2012. You had King that suffered for weeks and died in his kennel. We had a dog two dogs that went to a local groomer who said he wasn't going to take any more because the dog was full of fleas. Another one was full of foxtails. Both dogs had been in the shelter for weeks. So this is why, you need volunteers like us that are not going to drink the Kool-Aid and look the other way at crated dogs. The grand jury came in and there were no crated dogs. Why? Because Veronica killed them all. She killed them. And they're going, there's no problem here. Well, thumbs up Rancho. But we have video. We have pictures. We have proof how long those dogs lived in the travel crates, up to 8 weeks, and then killed for behavior. So please, I mean, Sam, you were quoted in the newspaper saying you wanted a director that was going to bridge the conflicts, and we got fired. Mr. Attorney, you state that you did an investigation, thorough investigation. You never talked to us. My allegations or my violations are absolute lies. Lies. I mean, how can you take one side as face value, type it up all nice and pretty, when they're absolute lies? So we've been coming here for a year begging you to talk to us, to not believe all the propaganda. And with furry friends coming up, I know, no holds bar. I mean, it's going to be a big deal. But still, she's controlling the population by killing. She's deeming, the experts, so-called experts, are deeming the dogs aggressive. They're not counting in adoption numbers. Rancho should be a leader in shelter reform. You've gone backwards. I mean, these numbers are showing it. You've gone backwards. And it's going to be tragic if that's going to be your legacy for the city, that under your leadership, the shelter, you know, failed the animals. No, staff is happy. They love it. They've decimated the volunteers. It took one girl 5 months. I know she's come up here and told her experience. 5 months to try to get in to walk a dog. That's crazy. So thank you, and I hope you'll really keep an open mind. I'm going to leave this with you, okay?
Thank you. Dana Keithley.
Good evening, City Council, members of the public. I'd like to piggyback a little bit on some of the comments that was made by Susan Keithley. Mr. City Attorney, you said at the last council meeting that your law firm was involved in the overseeing of the dismissal of the 4 longtime volunteers from the Rancho Cucamonga Animal Shelter. This means that the city actually spent money to fire free help. The city was able to design and undertake a one-sided investigation without the involvement of the individuals who were being targeted and without public participation, which might have otherwise encouraged a more rigorous examination. You also said that if the 4 volunteers wanted it, the investigation could be made public. That would be perfectly fine with us, but only if the entire investigation was indeed made so, and not just our trumped-up dismissal letters that include outright lies that we would actually very much like to bring to light and correct. In fact, council members, we would like to schedule appointments with each one of you to discuss some of these discrepancies that are in our dismissal letters. And Mr. Markman said in the last meeting that you would be able to discuss those matters if you would like. And if our dismissal wasn't in fact about speech, like Mr. Markman insists, then why do they mention our posting messages on social media sites? The shelter, city manager, and city attorney would assume that volunteers waive or forfeit all their speech rights as a condition of joining or participating in their programs. But this does not mean that government entities ought to have the authority to require such terms in the first place. But this is exactly what the City of Rancho Cucamonga Animal Shelter is doing to its volunteers. You're forced to sign what is essentially known as a do not ask, do not tell policy. You don't look right, you don't look left. You will not question any decisions, and you will not speak out against any abuses that are observed. If your opinions and ideas do not match those of the management, you are treated with disdain and distrust, and you will know it. Again, this is one reason why we tried to reach out so many times to our city manager and to you, before the new director was brought in. There were already issues there. And if you decide to speak up with valid concerns in a public forum, you can be dismissed and forced to leave behind the animals that you love to work with. And if you do not agree to sign and abide by these rules, you will not be allowed to volunteer at all. Government entities like municipal shelters should not be able to subvert transparency and accountability by using its power and resources to persuade individuals to contract away their First Amendment rights. Again, this is a common tactic of poorly run shelters that do not want volunteers who are willing to speak on behalf of the animals or even encourage public discourse. Sadly, this has not only happened at Rancho Cucamonga, but also in New York, Texas, and even more close to home, Baldwin Park, San Bernardino City Shelter, and most recently the Carson Shelter, all of which have either dismissed or suspended volunteers for exposing conditions. Council, you have to take a good look at your shelter's volunteer policy. and ask yourself, why all of the forced coercion and secrecy? Why are people not allowed to ask about the animal that was literally killed right out from under them? Why are videos and photos no longer allowed without expressed management approval? And why is shelter staff allowed to stalk current and potential volunteers' Facebook pages to make sure they are not being critical of the shelter? Why is the shelter working so hard to be as untransparent as possible? We can do better in Rancho. We can, and you guys can help us get there, and we want to help you do that. Thank you.
Thank you. You want to take these at the end of the meeting or now? Okay. I've got two more. Okay. John Lyons, followed by Nicole Meyerson.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, my name is John Lyons, and I reside in the Etowah area of the city of Rancho Cucamonga. First thing, I'd like to congratulate you guys on the new seniors, the Wellness Center. You expanded it. I went to the grand opening, and of course there were a lot of people already working there. We had to get them to be quiet. They were all working so hard. But it was a good thing, and I can't thank you enough for expanding the senior center, the Wellness Center. I think it's something that, there's so many stories I hear of people who say they wouldn't be alive today if it wasn't for that wellness center, because they went up there and worked out, and I think that's a real tribute to you folks up here. Of course, school started. Everybody went back to school, kind of exciting, and just be careful. There's a lot of students on the streets, and just a lot of traffic. I mean, just where you didn't have traffic before, you got traffic now, and it's bumper to bumper, so be careful. I wanted to talk they've got the southbound. I was complaining about on Foothill, on the 15 freeway, southbound at Foothill Boulevard. I was complaining about the off-ramp because the way you jump, well, Caltrans finally got it finished. It's open, and you can get right on there. It's beautiful now. It's actually a nice on-ramp to get on, and I just wanted to tell everybody that. Hopefully we get the traffic back. It really hurt a lot of the businesses on Foothill Boulevard because there was such limited traffic from that. So hopefully everybody comes back and uses Foothill Boulevard and the on-ramp southbound on the 15. It's open and it's good. And, I think it's gonna help lots of people. I'm gonna talk about the animal shelter a little bit. They came in here and they were we'll start out 7, 8 years ago. They started coming here bullying the city council. They wanted to change from the county to the city, and it cost us we spent about $8 million out of the general fund doing this. Now they came back, and same thing again, bullying and they're after the staff, the director, the city manager. Of course, I say the city attorney, but he doesn't think he's being bullied, which is good. It's all self-esteem. If you think good, you're good. To me, it's a pound, you know what I mean? Everybody talks about this long-term care and how we're going to treat the animals. And we need to get out of the long-term care business and, get it back to the pound. And they need to start an animal rescue shelter. I mean, if they need to be sent somewhere else if that's where they want them to be, where the city just doesn't have the funds to run that kind of a center that they want. And that's what I think they should do. They should go out and start themselves an animal rescue. They have to go somewhere where land's cheaper than it is around here. You can't afford to buy a land for a bunch of dogs. But there's land out there that's cheap. They can go out in the desert areas. There's a lot of areas out there and that's what they should do. And I mean, maybe the League of Cities ought to be looking at this as a method, to solve this. You mentioned a number of cities had this same problem, and maybe that's the way to do it. I don't know. I have a real problem with people, these volunteers that go in there and want to take pictures, and they want to be, they're critical of everything that's going on. I mean, they're supposed to be there working, with good karma and to help. Animals pick up bad karma, I got to tell you. They feel it, and I mean, this is not good for the shelter. It's not good. I don't think those people should be permitted to step foot on the animal shelter. But, what bothers me is, they bullied us into $8 million. And now they're bullying us again. And how much more money do they want this time? We don't have another $8 million to spend, but, you know, it's something we all ought to think about. You know, how much more money are we going to spend? And I don't know. You know, we just got so many other things we need to spend money on other than the animal shelter. I mean, you folks know more than I do the problems we've got out there and the things we need. I mean, all the cutbacks with the redevelopment agency money, and of course now they just cut $1 billion from the housing authority. I mean, these folks who live in some of our low-income apartments may actually find themselves having to pay more money very, very soon with the shortfalls coming. They just did a special on the radio about this, and they were talking about there's lower income apartments, and then there's higher end income apartments and that are rent assistance. And they said the ones that are higher end actually can rent some of them and will have a better opportunity to keep them going. But the ones that are really low income rent assistance, those are going to have to raise their prices. And this is going to be a major, major thing if this happens. You know, you never know with the Obama administration. They maybe haven't paid out. Anyway, thank you.
Nicole Myerton?
Good evening, Council. Tonight I'd actually like to talk to you about a couple different topics, so bear with me for a minute here. First, I would actually like to ask the Council's help with our link program. As our animal shelter has its individual Facebook page, I'd like to ask the city to create a Facebook page for our Jane Penny Homebound Senior Link program. The reason I ask for this is, like, on my own Facebook page, I'm able to network different things for animals just with a click of a button. This is free, and if we had a Facebook page for the seniors, imagine when there's a pancake fundraiser, click of a button, it goes out to 100 people. They send it out 1,000 people. When we need resources for you know, the holiday gift drive, the click of a button, we can ask for those items, and instead of just a handful of people who are aware of it, suddenly we increase awareness about the need, the demand, and how we can help. This is totally free, doesn't take a lot of work, and so I'd like to ask the Council's help in creating that Facebook page. Like I said, our shelter has one, let's have one for our seniors. Now I'm going to change topics. I certainly appreciate Mr. Lyons' comments. How is it that some shelters, open access municipal facility shelters, are achieving 90 to 90% live outcome? Is it because they're dropping loads of money? No, it's because the policies and procedures that they're implementing are different than what an old school mentality is. So tonight I'm going to talk about TNR, trap, neuter, and release, and I'm going to give you a little visual aid about what this is about. So if I can get some help, because I can't hold the trap and everything else. So, what is TNR? As many of you know, there are feral cat colonies. A feral cat is a cat that hasn't been socialized. They run around in little groups and they reproduce. In the past, with the county, traps like this would be left out. The cats would go in, they'd be brought to the shelter, and then after 3 days, all of them would be euthanized. They were considered unadoptable, so it was a 100% kill rate under the county. Now, our current policy is, imagine I'm the person who feeds those animals. Now imagine this is my neighbor who sets the trap and doesn't want those animals back. Those animals go to the shelter, and after 3 days, they're killed. Now imagine the same cat, this is my little cat, the stuffed animal in here, is trapped by my other neighbor who wants the cat TNR'd. Then the cat gets altered and is returned to its colony. Now, I am asking the city to adopt a 100% TNR program. This is something that Nathan advocates, not just me. I believe that we have not only support from, you know, the residents, from the city, from everyone, and this is something that will change our numbers right now. The numbers that you're seeing are from records requests, so they reflect what's actually going on. But we have the opportunity to change those numbers in a very short period of time by adopting programs like this. It's not only good for the animals, it's good for the shelter staff, because our shelter, I will disagree with Mr. Lyons, should not be an extermination company. It's a shelter. It is more cost effective to alter them and put them back as opposed to warehouse them, kill them, and dispose of them. It is less stressful to the staff because they're having more live outcomes. It's a more positive thing for our shelter director because there's more positive outcomes. And it's good for the people who volunteer down there because they're seeing more live outcomes. It is a win-win-win all across the board, economically, ethically, and so I'm asking for your help tonight on 2 specific issues. I'm very proud of our library. We have a state-of-the-art library, and I credit a lot of that to you, Ms. Williams, and the rest of you, Council. I am very proud of the fact that we are working on leaving less of a carbon footprint by using solar, and I am super proud of the fact that we have a LINK program for our homebound seniors. When something is presented that can make something better, whether it's for seniors or animals or Pop Warner or business, let's embrace that opportunity and let's always strive to do better in those areas. Let's not let this kind of conflict constantly go on. Let's address it. Let's correct it. Let's get it back where it needs to be. Thank you so much for your time. I've asked you for 2 things tonight. I hope that you take action on them. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our public communications. We'll move on to consent calendar. One very brief announcement, but it's a very exciting announcement, and it comes with those of you that may be familiar with A Good Day in LA segment, or Cesar Millan, who is the dog whisperer. He recently, actually today, visited our animal care and adoption center, and as they were approached by his foundation about hosting one of his shows, and it was a segment about pit bulls, chihuahuas in the Inland Empire. Cesar and his staff came out to the animal shelter this morning and filmed 3 live shoots, and some footage that will air at a later time on his show. Staff and volunteers had a really great experience with him, and we hope this will lead to future opportunities for partnerships. Mr. Milan had many compliments about the animal center and even made a comment that this is the best animal center he has ever been in. There are some really great things coming out of the animal center, and I know we had a little video, I think, clip that the staff wanted to show regarding his visit today.
Welcome back. So maybe you want a pet, but you're not sure how to find one that fits your lifestyle. It's a very big choice. So Maribeth is in Rancho Cucamonga with the one and only Cesar Millan, who knows a thing or 2 about this stuff. Right, Mar?
Yeah. Just a little bit. Cesar can hear you, so you can talk directly to Cesar. Look at this little
We're
wuss.
surrounded by pits now. We went from the chihuahuas to the pits.
Yeah, now we're in the danger zone. Not really.
Not
so,
really.
Cesar, let's talk about this.
Yeah.
We're here in the Inland Empire, and recently, you know, there was a mauling in Riverside County,
sorry
and
to hear that.
people are, you know, afraid of pit bulls.
Yeah,
and some are saying they should eradicate the breed entirely, and others are saying, you know what, let's pass a law to just sterilize all the pit bulls.
Sterilizing is great.
So you support that?
I support that. You know, we have an overpopulation of dogs right now. We're euthanizing 45 million dogs a year.
That's horrible.
You know, so that's something that we have to do. You know, as a dog lover, we have to do something about it. But you're surrounded by pit bulls right now, so this is the other side of the pit. You know, the unfortunate news that you just tell me right now, it's a sad thing. As a dad, I don't want that to happen. But my kids were raised around powerful breeds, and
I
never
was
had
too.
a problem.
So what is something that people can, you know, learn or keep in mind when they are coming to a shelter like this, for instance, and they're interested in a doggy and potentially a pit bull, but you know they're a little bit off put by. Look at the size
Look at
of
that
this.
face. Look
Look at this face.
Number
Look
one,
at
when you
the
come to a shelter, you have to understand they're disoriented. They don't know where they are. So there's a level of frustration that's going to happen. So do not evaluate or judge just because they're in a shelter. Just make sure you bring it out. You know, the shelter people can tell you more about that. So you see a lot of dog in it. So it's not always the breed. Let's be smart about it. Let's don't stereotype. You know.
Is it because they're so strong? That's why there's a lot of problems with them.
Well, there is a strength, but at the same time, if you redirect that energy, you can make them extremely lovable. Look at that.
I love them. All right, Cesar, we're going to get inside the shelter again, and maybe visit one of the kennels inside.
Let's do it.
You know, actually
I can
see
teach
what
you
it's
more.
like.
Okay. Identification of items for our next meeting. Hearing none, we stand adjourned.